I was actually hired as a booking agent because I've always been kind of entrepreneurial, and Premier Talent hired me. Frank Barcelona and Barbara Skydell hired me to work at Premier Talent, booking The Crazy World of Arthur Brown.
Wow.
And Brian Auger and Julie Driscoll.
Wow.
The tour fizzled because of visa problems, and my job went away with their tour. I was going to be a trainee. So what do I do now? I moved from upstate to take this job, and was crashing at my sister's house, and took a job at Sam Ash, which is a chain of music stores, as most people know. And Jody Ash hired me, and I was working in the Hempstead store. And here's where fate, I hope the story isn't too long, but this is how I got in the band, which is kind of critical, and it's really changed my, I wouldn't say religious, because it's not religious, but it's, fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it, because there's just too many coincidences that got me into this chair here today. And one of which was, I went to college with a guy named Les Bronstein. Les Bronstein was in a jug band when I was in the fraternity parties.
Okay.
And so I was very well known, and he sort of was too in his own way, as a folky kind of guy. And he graduated same year as me. He moved down to New York, and he got in this band called Soft White Underbelly, which is the precursor to Blue Oyster Cult. So I knew he was doing that. I moved down to New York, get this job as an agent. Didn't happen. Got a job in Sam Ash. One day, into the Hempstead store, walk a few guys to buy some amps. It's Soft White Underbelly, and I was the salesman. So they were making small talk, and I had taken a picture of my college bar band to put it up on the wall. There was the Rolling Stones, The Who, and Lost and Found, my college bar band. And the bass player, whose name was Andrew Winters, he was the original Underbelly bass player, said, "Oh, Lost and Found. Well, I know those guys." I said, "How do you know those guys?" He says, "Well, our lead singer went to school with one of the guys." I said, "That's me." So he says, "Which guy are you?" I said, "That's me right there, the guy with the beard and the hair." So we made some small talk. Small world, I met Donald and the other guys. And then here, that's fate enough. A week later, I had a girlfriend in those days who was in the Bronx. And she called me and she said one of her workmates was leaving for the weekend, and she could use her apartment for the weekend. I said, "Fine, let's go." So I left my sister's house, went to the Bronx, went to this girl's apartment, and I called my best friend, a guy named Jerry Wolf, who I went to college with, and called him up. I said, "Here's the number I'm at for this weekend." It was Thanksgiving Day of 1968. And I said, "Anything going on? Party at your house? Anything, we'll come over." Okay, so Jerry Wolf's the only guy in the world who knew where I was that night. The only person in the world, besides my girlfriend who was with me. The phone rings an hour later. It's Les Bronstein. I said, "How'd you get this number?" He says, "Well, we're playing a gig in the city at the, it was called the Dom in those days. It was a club in Manhattan on St. Mark's Place. Can't remember the name of it now. But he said, "The PA sucks. Do you still have your truck and your PA?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Would you like to come down and do our sound?" I said, "Well, how'd you know where I was?" He says, "I knew it, Wolf would know where you were." Okay. So I called the only guy who knew where I was, got the number, called me. I asked my girlfriend, "Do you mind if we go do the sound for this band?" Okay. We went in, did the sound. I met Sandy Pearlman, Richard Meltzer, the rest of the guys in the band, assorted girlfriends, friends, buddies. And Pearlman came over to me after the show and he says, "How'd you like to work for the band, be the tour manager?" And I had been fired from Sam Ash already, so that sounded pretty good to me, working for a band, So I said, he says, "Well, they're making an album. They have a deal on Electro Records, and they need like somebody to, organize everything. And if they have some gigs, you help them out." I said, "All right." So they had a band house in Great Neck, New York, and which is the suburbs, like a wealthy suburb of Long Island. And I moved into the band house on Christmas Day of 1968. I think they asked me if I wanted the job because I had a van, and I also had a PA.
PA.
Yeah. So it's sort of like
no
when.
stereotype there.
Yeah, no. If you were a bass player in those days, if you had a B-15 and a bass, you got the job, whether you knew how to play or not.
Right.
That's just the way it was.
Portaflex.
That's the way it was. And I had a van, I had a PA. So I got the job as the quote-unquote tour manager, except there was no tour. It was just road manager, I guess. And I moved into the band house. There was no room for me in the band house, which was a big, old, nice house that it was all beat up because they had no money to maintain it. And there was like holes in the ceiling where the pipes had broken, and it was really beat. And it was just sort of a hippie commune. Donald lived there, who's now Buck Dharma, but he lived there with his girlfriend. Albert lived there with his girlfriend. Richard Meltzer lived there with his girlfriend. Andrew Winters, the bass player, and Alan Lanier, the keyboard player, lived in the attic, and there was no place left. So, and Les Bronstein lived there with his girlfriend. So I slept on a couch between two guys' rooms on the attic. But
Wow.
it was better than living at my sister's house. No offense to my sister, but it was, at least I was like with some musicians
Right.
and people my own age, and it was kind of
Yep.
fun. So fast forward to kind of a weird stroke of fate there, like two in a row. The third weird stroke of fate was several months later. Underbelly's playing a gig in upstate New York. I wanted to go visit my girlfriend who had gone back to college. I was going to go visit her the day before the Underbelly had a gig at Wells College in upstate New York. So I took my van and put all the band gear in because they were going to meet me up there. And I said, I'm going to go up and visit this girl. Okay. And Lanier says, I'll go with you for the ride. I said, okay. So I went up a day early. I dropped him off at a dorm where I had my old bandmates from Lost and Found were still students. So he crashed with them. I took the van and went stay with my girlfriend and came back the next day. I did the sound for the band and we drove back to New York. About 2 or 3 days later, Perlman walks into the living room of the band house, and I'm watching TV and the band's rehearsing in the basement. And he had my tambourine from my bar band days, which I had painted day glow, orange and green. The kind with the hole in it so you can...
Right.
So he says, the boys want to talk to you. Okay. Go down the basement, and he says, how would you like to be the singer in the band? I go, what? I had no inkling, of anything.
Had you sung with them before?
Never. I mean, hanging around and jamming, stuff, But apparently Lanier had listened to some tapes from my Lost and Found bar band when he was crashed in the dorm that night.
Huh.
And they were having difficulties, personality difficulties with Les, which I didn't know about. And they had a parting of the ways, and all of a sudden I'm nominated singer. So all these little coincidences and weirdnesses, if Alan hadn't gone up the day before, if I hadn't called my friend and said, I'm crashing at this place, if I hadn't been the guy at Sam Ash, it's a kind of a weird thread. I was thrilled. And that was the beginning. That was, I'd say, April of 1969. And now it's, almost 40 years later.